Tequila to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Training camp battles. This time I'm talking about the safety position. And if there was a position that's probably one of the most up in the air on the entire team, it might be safety. I mean, you just look at the names that are involved. And of course, we know Malik Mustafa would have been a mainstay. He would have been the starter, the number one safety for the San Francisco 49ers. And he could be. We don't know exactly what the outcome is of his injury. We do know that he had, surgery on a injured ACL in January once the season concluded. Where is he at? Well, it looks like he's looking pretty strong. He's moving around pretty well. But do we know he's going to be back for week one? We don't. And of course, that's, a little bit of a stretch anyways, whenever you come off an ACL injury. Of course, there's a lot of things that play into that. Were there other ligaments? What was the structure like? Was it a clean tear? There's a lot of things that go into that, but I think you have to look at this safety room without Malik Mustafa, at least through the first 4 games. I think there's a chance that Malik starts the training camp portion, especially the early portion, on the PUP list, and maybe he's not ready to go. A lot like what happened with Hufanga last year. Now, Hufanga, they did activate him. It was only 2 or 3 weeks, and then he was back. But with Mustafa, maybe they want to just wait. But some of that and how they wait is going to be determined by how some of those guys play behind him. And there's some question marks about the guys behind him. And you just look at a player like Ji'Ayir Brown, and I think everyone's wondering, what are we going to get? What are we going to get from number 27? Are we going to get the Ji'Ayir Brown at the end of his rookie season, playing under Steve Wilkes, that was displaying some real skills on the football field, that was showing some vision, that was some ability to come up and make a big-time tackle and be a pretty good tackler and a good stick, but also could make some of those big plays in the secondary and get some key interceptions like he did in the Super Bowl, where he intercepted Patrick Mahomes. And I think that we're wondering, are we going to see that? Is he going to build off of that under Robert Saleh? Or is Ji'Ayir Brown more of what we saw last year under Coach Nick Sorensen? And I think there's a lot of people that believe that he's more like the Steve Wilkes version of Ji'Ayir Brown that we got, and less like the Nick Sorensen. We think that the defense was more in disarray, and that did hurt Ji'Ayir Brown, but he's got to go prove it. Remember, this isn't a defensive coordinator that's invested in Ji'Ayir Brown. Now, he might like Ji'Ayir Brown, he might like his skill set, and he might invest himself in him because the team invested themselves in Ji'Ayir Brown. But make no mistake about it, Robert Saleh has a particular way that he wants his safeties to play on the back end. And Ji'Ayir Brown has to mold himself to play that position. And the 49ers have brought in a ton of faces to go ahead and compete. We know about Malik Mustafa. He's going to be on the PUP list. Let's put him to the side. 49ers brought in key veterans. Richie Grant, who had been a second-round pick at a UCF a little while back. He's been with the Atlanta Falcons. Jason Pinnock, a Robert Saleh guy who was drafted in the 5th round by the New York Jets. Now, he hasn't played for Saleh for a while. He's been playing in New York, but with the Giants. But still a Saleh guy. Then there's Marquis Siegel, who is absolutely a Robert Saleh guy. They just drafted him in the 5th round of the 2025 NFL Draft. And I've said before, I think his skill set reminds me of a certain 49ers former safety. Then they got George Odom. He's a holdover and a special teams ace. So that's going to provide him an opportunity to be a depth player on this team. They also got Jalen Mahoney, who was an undrafted free agent last year, who was pretty good. I mean, the thing was, he had a really impressive training camp and showed out a little bit in his opportunities to come in and play, especially on special teams, where he looks like a guided missile coming in and making some key tackles and is very physical at the point of attack. So the elements are all there. This is going to be a spicy meatball of a competition at safety because you have everything you need. Now, one of these guys has to hit, to play next to Malik eventually, But at the beginning of the season, we need a couple of guys to hit. And I think the 49ers are hoping that Robert Saleh can figure this thing out, but they gave him some tools to try to figure it out. And we're going to go through the competition here because there's going to be a lot of these guys competing with each other because I do believe there's versatility at the position. So make sure you hang around for this. But first, please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. If you are going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online continues to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. And with baseball season in full swing and football season around the corner, Bet Online has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting. From MLB, UFC to tennis and NFL futures, Bet Online remains your choice for sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the Bet Online casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. Head to the website today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level-up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. Bet Online, the game starts here. And starting with Ji'Ayir Brown, because I do think that he is one of the linchpin players for the safety position and the determination of what this group is going to look like. Because Ji'Ayir Brown is still a very talented young player. And yes, last year definitely it didn't go the way that Ji'Ayir Brown wanted it to go. It didn't go the way that the 49ers organization wanted it to go. And we had heard some pretty good things about Ji'Ayir Brown leading into last year that made you believe Ji'Ayir Brown was still going to take another step forward. Fred Warner was speaking out about how good they expected Ji'Ayir Brown to be. Ji'Ayir Brown was talking about all the communication that he was going to have, that he had learned so much from Talanoa Hufanga, that he had learned so much from Tashawn Gibson about how to communicate and over-communicating, which is a instrument in which Fred Warner talks about all the time, is that communication. So he was saying the right things, and it appeared he was doing the right things, getting his body in order. He looked the part. He was talking the part, and everything was really illustrated that he was going to have a good season. However, he did not. And I don't know what exactly got it going that direction. Could it have been Hufanga wasn't ready to come in? There was no Tashawn Gibson. That basically, when it came to playing in the secondary, that you looked at Ji'Ayir Brown as kind of the leader of the secondary, when it came to the safety position. Maybe that was too quick. Maybe that was too much, too fast for Ji'Ayir Brown, because it looked like he was a step slow last year. His reading seemed to be a step slow. His coverage seemed to be a step slow. He was a step slow making a tackle. His tackling was really ineffective compared to what it was his rookie season. So maybe it was just a lot for him to think about and a lot for him to react to. Well, the 49ers are going to put him in a situation where he's going to have to compete. I don't believe that they are just going to give Ji'Ayir Brown a spot. Now, I do believe when they come in, day one of training camp, as long as Ji'Ayir Brown is healthy, because he did have the ankle injury, as long as he is healthy, I do believe he's going to line up with the first defense at safety. I do believe that. I think that he is in a competition. I think this is an open competition, and he's got a shot to lose his spot, because I think that they are looking for the best possible safety group they can get, whether it's Ji'Ayir Brown or not. I don't think that they are beholden to Ji'Ayir Brown, that we need to make him work. I think if they could make him work, they love it because they've invested in him. But if Robert Saleh says, hey, Ji'Ayir Brown is not our guy, we need to go a different direction, this team is willing to go a different direction. We've seen them cut guys loose recently that maybe we thought that they were super high on. So they are not against letting somebody go if they're not going to meet expectations, or in Ji'Ayir Brown's case, more than likely end up as a backup, because he still has some ability. He started some games in the league, and I think the 49ers like him. So he's number one right now in having an opportunity to get a starting job. Then after that, it comes down to the guys who are in competition with him. Now, one of them is in competition to start next to him, but they're also at the same time competing with him. It's one of the most interesting things. And I think the top three guys that are really competing with him is you have Richie Grant, who I talked about. They brought in from the Atlanta Falcons, a former second-round pick. And I think that the 49ers have had their eye on him for a while, but I think Robert Saleh had his eye on him for a while as well, because he does fit what Robert Saleh likes to do in his defense. So I think Grant is a guy that they like and that they want to give an opportunity to. And just to keep it clear, when the 49ers had minicamp, guess who was lined up at safety? Richie Grant and Jason Pennick. And I just said that Ji'Ayir Brown was on the shelf because of the ankle injury, but that just illustrates that these two guys can play together. And Richie Grant is a guy that can play the free safety role, but has the ability to line up in the box, make tackles in the box, come up and fill and run support. He's got a lot of ability when it comes to some of the coverage things as well. So he is a guy that's got the physical talent to be able to play within the 49ers defense. And I think that there's a lot to like if you go back and you watch some of his UCF film, and it starts making you ask the question, why didn't he translate to the Atlanta Falcons defense? Is there something about that defense that doesn't fit his skill set that makes him fit a little bit better with the 49ers? I think in some cases, yes. Now, Raheem Morris has been the defensive coordinator there, or the head coach. So it is a return to more of, that cover four mentality, right? The cover two, cover four. So there is a chance to see him within that defense. But I think that Richie Grant is going to be competing with Ji'Ayir Brown. I think he's going to get the reps behind Ji'Ayir Brown initially. So I think you're going to have Ji'Ayir Brown playing, one safety. And then I think the other starter is going to be Jason Pennick to start the season. Now, we know Malik Mustafa is going to come back at some point, but Jason Pennick is a Robert Saleh guy through and through. So Robert Saleh drafted Jason Pennick in the 5th round, and he liked him a lot. Jason Pennick played 1 season for the New York Jets, and he was very, very high on Pennick. Now, the interesting thing about Jason Pennick was one of the reasons Robert Saleh drafted him is he was a nickel corner in college. So he had the ability to kind of walk up, cover some guys in the slot, and the Jets were looking at him as a versatile piece. Does this sound familiar? Did the 49ers ever have a safety that also was a cornerback that could play in the nickel? Yeah, right? A Jimmy Ward type guy. And I think that is exactly what Robert Saleh was looking for in New York, because he drafted him as soon as he got there. He drafted Jason Pennick, and I think that was the idea. Now, Pennick took a little bit longer adjusting to the position, and Robert Saleh thought, hey, we can waive him, and then we'll bring him to the practice squad. There's actually a quote out there after they waived him where Saleh was heartbroken when he got picked up by the New York Giants. So Pennick goes to the Giants, and Robert Saleh loses his chance to develop a guy into potentially becoming a Jimmy Ward type player. Because Robert Saleh in his defense likes a guy that can walk up and he can cover a tight end in the slot, or he can cover a running back out wide, or he can even get out there and just man up on a tight end if needed. So he was looking for that guy with Pennick, right? Some coverage skills, which he believed could translate to safety. Now, Pennick is going to get an opportunity early on for the 49ers playing next to Ji'Ayir Brown. And Richie Grant is going to be taking the reps behind Ji'Ayir Brown, and he's waiting for one slip up. Now, don't get it twisted. Jason Pennick is also competing with Richie Grant because they are going to play the two best safeties. The 49ers don't play a traditional strong safety, free safety role. If they have somebody that fits that, then they can definitely grow to make the defense work that way. But the way that they've done it since Robert Saleh was here, especially to the later parts of Saleh's tenure in San Francisco, the 2020, but mainly into the DeMeco Ryans tenure, which is 2021 and 2022, is the 49ers went to more of a left-right safety. And they would just kind of determine between the two of them who was going to play in the box, who was going to play deep. Hufanga and Tashawn Gibson were great at this, and they did a really good job of communicating, and they found the matchups that worked, and it made a lot of sense. Will the 49ers give the freedom to Pennick, Grant, and Ji'Ayir Brown to do that? Probably not early on, but I think Robert Saleh could use their skill set to his advantage because they do each have unique skill sets that will go a long way to help their football team. And I think one of those things is Jason Pennick has to blitz, right? He was the number one blitzing safety last year. Jason Pennick was the best. And so I think that that's an element to his game that's going to give an opportunity when he walks up into the box to potentially bring pressure on the quarterback. And even if he's not bringing pressure, he's making the tight end, he's making the offensive tackle, he's making the running back think about the fact that Jason Pennick comes after the quarterback when he blitzes off the edge, and he's very effective. That effectiveness means you have to allocate an offensive lineman to him. So that is going to be one of the weapons that's going to be used by Jason Pennick that I believe is going to give him a little bit of a better opportunity to win this starting job than somebody like Richie Grant, who is an effective safety, but doesn't have a skill that puts him kind of over the top. So you see what the avenue is for Pennick to be able to make this team. But the competitions aren't just Ji'Ayir Brown versus Richie Grant versus Jason Pennick, or just Grant versus Pennick, but there's a new element there too, and that is Marquis Siegel. And I just talked about why Jason Pennick was potentially drafted by the Jets, was the guy that played nickel corner that could also play safety. Well, guess what? That is Marquis Siegel to a T. In fact, I have said that Marquis Siegel reminds me, skill set wise, of Jimmy Ward. Now, he is faster than Jimmy Ward, and it's not close. Marquis Siegel's tremendously faster. I think that Marquis Siegel is a better nickel corner, a guy that can walk up in that position and play better than Jimmy Ward at nickel corner. I thought Ward was definitely a better safety than a corner per se, right? It was Trent Baalke in that regime that tried to play him at safety, play him at corner. Then eventually Kyle Shanahan, once Tashawn Gibson came on strong with Hufanga, and Hufanga was having an all-pro year, asked Jimmy Ward when he came off injury to play nickel, and he was more effective than who they had playing it before. So we got to give him credit. But he did give up a lot of catches. The coverage wasn't always great. The run fits were phenomenal, and he created turnovers. But I think that Marquis Siegel is going to have an opportunity to compete. I don't think that he's just going to sit back and allow the competition in front of him, to kind of take over. I think that he's going to get opportunities right off the bat in training camp. So when Ji'Ayir Brown and Jason Pennick are out there, I think Marquis Siegel and Richie Grant are the next unit. I do. I think Marquis Siegel is going to be pushing for an opportunity to play. And one thing that's going to really jump off at everyone who's watching is going to be the speed. How quickly can he turn and run and take away part of the field, right? If the 49ers are in a cover two, can he take away half the field? If he's playing a single high safety, can he cover a half of the field or a third of the field? Yes. That's what I want to see. I want to see this guy turn and run and have that ability to cover a large distance. I want to see what that speed does when he's able to drive on a dig route over the middle of the field. Can he come up and stick that guy? Can he come up and get a pass deflection? What does that change of direction look like? Does he have the ability to be an eraser and walk up on George Kittle in the slot? Or, what are these other tight ends in the slot? Or Kyle Juszczyk in the slot? And limit them. You're never going to take away, right? Especially George Kittle. You're not going to take him away, but could you limit them? Could you show that versatility that allows Robert Saleh another unique tool to use within his defense? I think that's going to be interesting. And so I think Marquis Siegel's more in this than he probably is thought of, right? Some people think that Marquis Siegel's going to start day one. I love those guys, right? Applaud those people that want to see that. I want to see that too. But I think that, Pennick and Grant are going to start ahead of him. But I think that he's got an opportunity if he can go out there and display his physical tools that he showed at Kansas State. I think he's going to get more opportunity than people want. That is probably the worst situation for Ji'Ayir Brown. Marquis Siegel is the biggest obstacle for Ji'Ayir Brown, because if Ji'Ayir Brown is going to be a starter, it's going to be because Marquis Siegel didn't come up and take his spot. Because Siegel is the perfect match for Malik Mustafa. The way Malik Mustafa plays, his ability to play in the box, his ability to run the alley and be physical in tackling and in the run game, marries very well with Marquis Siegel's ability to play the deep third, his ability to walk up in the slot, his ability to play more of a free safety type role. If you get those two guys together, I think that's the 49ers plan. They feel like they can build a defense with those two guys in the back end. If Siegel plays extremely well and he outplays Ji'Ayir Brown, don't be shocked to see Jason Pennick and Marquis Siegel together. I think that it's going to be tough for Marquis Siegel to pick up all the coverage. They say he's got a good football IQ and a good mind, and I hope he does. And if he could pick up route concepts and he could really drive on these footballs and use that speed the way we were talking about, we've seen Malik Mustafa in his rookie season make an impact. We've seen Ji'Ayir Brown in his rookie season make an impact. So it's not out of the question. Safeties play primarily pretty good within the 49ers defense, especially under Robert Saleh, when you see what he's been able to do with guys like Tarvarius Moore, guys like Jaquiski Tart, Jimmy Ward, who had great success playing in a Robert Saleh, DeMeco Ryan style defense. So Marquis Siegel is the threat to Ji'Ayir Brown. If he comes in and he plays lights out, they're going to want to go with Siegel, number one, at one of those safety spots, and then it'll either be Malik Mustafa, Jason Pinnock, Pinnock early, and then maybe Mustafa when he comes back. That is the 49ers' perfect situation, and that is Ji'Ayir Brown's biggest obstacle. So Marquis Siegel versus Ji'Ayir Brown is a real thing. I think early on he's going to get reps, him and Richie Grant behind Pinnock and Ji'Ayir Brown. But what happens all of a sudden if he's playing so well and he starts splitting reps? That's going to be fun. Now, these aren't the only guys that are in the mix for the safety position, because the 49ers also have George Odom. And George Odom was the guy lining up next to Ji'Ayir Brown to start the season last year. And Odom had been an effective player when he was with the Colts. He was really good in the box. In fact, he hadn't missed a tackle his last year in Indianapolis. He made every single tackle. Now, he struggled a little bit more when it came to tackling in his time in San Francisco, but he still has been a decent player in the secondary. I don't think it's been great. I don't think it's been horrible. There's been some bad plays, right? Everyone remembers what happened last year in the Minnesota game, but it doesn't mean that George Odom's not capable. And so I think that Odom's still in the mix. I don't think he's in the mix to start. I don't think he's going to get a starting job for the 49ers, but I do believe he's got a chance to be one of the 4 safeties for the 49ers, especially initially because Malik Mustafa starts on the PUP list. You have a roster spot available. Let's see what George Odom does when it comes to play special teams. Because if he plays close to a guy like Richie Grant, right? Just close enough to where they're pretty comparable when it comes to playing defense, then he's got to outplay him on special teams, right? Grant's a pretty good special teams player. I got to give him credit. Richie Grant's a pretty good special teams player. Only been in the league for 4 years. Odom's been around for a while. Odom's been an all-pro caliber special teams player. Now, that has dipped over the last couple years. Not enough for the 49ers not to give an investment to him last year in a new contract. But that's what it's going to come down to. Some of the depth pieces, especially at skill positions, safety, tight end, running back, wide receiver, linebacker, these are going to be positions that not just what they do between the field or on the sidelines, or during the game, during defense or offense, is going to make the biggest difference. It also means special teams as well. Teams is a real thing, and Brad Boyer is going to want to have the most effective. And that is probably one of the reasons the 49ers were willing to pay George Odom's $1 million roster bonus that he got for being on the roster on June 1. So the 49ers are definitely not out on George Odom. He's in the mix, and he's finally going to be healthy again. So you do have some veterans that are coming in competing. Pinnock, veteran, right? Richie Grant, veteran. George Odom, veteran. The real young players are Marquis Siegel and Jalen Mahoney. And Mahoney's somebody I haven't talked about yet, but an undrafted free agent who has an opportunity to go out there and produce. And we've seen the 49ers, with all the injuries to safety last year, bring Mahoney up to the active roster and especially play him when it came to special teams. And it was a mixed bag. Sometimes it was good, pretty good tackler for the most part. Looks like a torpedo, comes up there, takes somebody out. Really good when it comes to that. And then there were some times he missed, he whiffed. And you've got to be more effective when it comes to special teams, but 49ers had injuries. George Odom's hurt. They had Hufanga, who was coming back, but he wasn't going to play special teams. So you have to find effectiveness from the position, and Jalen Mahoney was that guy. So he's not out of the question either. I thought that last year during training camp, we saw a better Jalen Mahoney than we were expecting to see. He definitely translated to the 49ers defense better, especially in coverage, than I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to be a really good box player, a guy that could walk in the box, make tackles, help in run fits. maybe blitz the quarterback a little bit and be effective. But what I saw was a guy that was a little bit more effective on the back end than I initially expected. So I think that when you talk about a guy who practiced the whole season, now understands his defense, got a lot of work in against a really good offense last year in San Francisco, Jalen Mahoney is going to be a better player. So I don't think we can completely discount him from this competition. Now, do I believe that it's going to be difficult? Because when you start looking at reps and lining things up, it's going to be difficult? Yes. Because when the 49ers go out to training camp and they go out for their first practice on July 23rd, the first group of safeties out there is going to be Ji'Ayir Brown and Jason Pinnock. The second group of safeties, more than likely, now Marquis Siegel has to be healthy, but more than likely is going to be Richie Grant and Marquis Siegel. Because even though I would normally move a rookie down a little bit when it comes to reps, they want Marquis Siegel to have an opportunity. And maybe it'll be practice 2 or 3 that they move him up with Richie Grant. So it might not be. But I'm just saying, if I'm looking at perspective as a coach, that's what I'm doing. I want him to see a rep, do a rep. And I want him to see it from a guy like Pinnock and a guy like Ji'Ayir Brown. You put him with Richie Grant so he has support with a veteran. Then you run George Odom with Jalen Mahoney. And the reason I do that is, once again, another young player with a veteran. And yes, Odom has proven that he probably shouldn't be on the third unit, but you can kind of move people around as things happen during camp. So I think that that's how the units go. Pinnock, Ji'Ayir Brown, Siegel, and Richie Grant, and Jalen Mahoney, and George Odom. And I think that Siegel is the kryptonite for Ji'Ayir Brown. That is going to be, I'm so pumped for that competition. I'm pumped to see what Marquis Siegel can do. Because I think with his versatility, he can open up this defense. Him and Malik Mustafa together could be crazy. Now, I do believe the 49ers are going to keep 4 safeties. I think Malik Mustafa will start the season on the PUP list, and if he was able to come back earlier, hey, I'm all for it. I think just right now, reading the writing on the wall, that's what I believe. And I think that, you look at this, it's going to be a combination of Marquis Siegel and 3 other guys. Siegel's making this football team, 100%. The other 3 guys are to be determined. And it's between 5. I think it's the most likely. Between 4 other guys. I think it's most likely between 3. Because I do think Jalen Mahoney's kind of on the outside looking in. But I never want to shut down his opportunity to go out there and impress. Because we've seen undrafted free agents under Robert Saleh impress before. Azeez Al-Shire at linebacker, Emmanuel Mosley at cornerback. This sort of thing happens. So it's going to be fun. Ji'Ayir Brown versus Jason Pinnock versus Richie Grant versus George Odom versus Marquis Siegel. It's going to be one heck of a battle. I'm looking forward to it. So let me know in the comment section down below who you think is going to win these jobs. Do you think it's going to, does Marquis Siegel win the job? Or do you think it's going to be Ji'Ayir Brown and Jason Pinnock, initially being the starters? I'm curious. A lot of people have question marks about Ji'Ayir Brown. I wonder how you feel about it. Let me know in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.